Welcome to episode 418 of the AM/PM podcast. This week, my guest is two guests, actually, Christie and AJ from Sky Postal. We talk about why you should be considering expanding to Latin America. There's some massive opportunities in Latin America. I think $200 and some odd billion worth of e-commerce activity going on, and it's super easy for you to ship directly from the United States into Latin America. We talk about that and a whole lot more in this episode. I think you're going to get a lot of value, and it's going to open your eyes. Enjoy.
Welcome to the AM/PM podcast. Welcome to the AM/PM podcast, where we explore opportunities in e-commerce.
We dream big and we discover what's working right now.
Plus, this is the podcast where money never sleeps, working around the clock in the AM and the PM.
Are you ready for today's episode?
I said, are you ready? Let's do this. Here's your host, Kevin King. Kevin King.
Look who I have this week on the AM/PM podcast. It's a 2-for-1. That's right. It's Christie and AJ. Christie, how you doing? AJ, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
Doing amazing. Thank you.
So you guys, probably people are like, who's this Christie and AJ? They're listening to this. I haven't seen them in the Facebook group or in the forums or in Helium 10 or anything. Who are Christie and AJ?
We are Sky Postal. So we are a logistics solutions partner in Latin America, really focusing on driving your Latin America business and really showing you what the opportunity is there. We know that this year alone, Latin America is going to do $195 billion in the e-commerce market. And by 2028, which is less than 4 years from now, it's going to do $270 billion. It's one of the fastest growing markets out there.
That's really good. I think AJ, she needs a raise because she's got the elevator pitch down.
She's got it
down. She's got it nailed in. Exactly.
I'm not sure I could have done much better than that to get everybody interested in what we're doing. But
yes.
Just to add to what Christie does, we are a delivery company. We focus on the delivery of e-commerce parcels into Latin America. That's our expertise. We've been there for 50 years. We like to position ourselves as an alternative to the very expensive express carriers like FedEx or UPS or DHL, and the very unreliable postal services that the USPS has to rely upon in the region to deliver their packages. So that's kind of our niche. That's what we are. We have all the benefits of a courier service, tracking, tracing, online visibility, but we're more closely priced to a postal product.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the opportunity. I mean, especially in North America. I mean, we call it America, and the South Americans might take and Central Americans say, "Well, we're America too." But in the United States, a lot of people don't realize they might have been to Mexico, to Cancun, on a vacation or something, maybe to Costa Rica and stayed in the jungle, but they don't understand the culture and what's really going on down in Latin America. I was married to a Colombian for several years, and I've been all over. I've been to all but one country in Latin America and Central America, and I've been all over. I was down in Colombia probably 30 times, living down there for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, sometimes when I was doing long distance with my now ex-wife. But so I'm very familiar with the system, and I've been running e-commerce before Amazon. I have a calendar business, and we had people ordering in Latin America sometimes these calendars, and we'd ship them down there. And you're right, the cost to do FedEx or something was prohibitive for a $20 item. Or the U.S. mail, it might take forever, and it's got to go on the back of a donkey across a mountain. You don't know if the donkey's going to get there, if it's going to die on the way, and they're just going to leave the packages in the woods. And it was frustrating, but that market, it's a different market. It's still much more of a cash-based market than the United States, but it's growing with Mercado Libre and several of the other big marketplaces. More and more people are coming online, and they pay. They may not all have credit cards, but they pay differently. And a lot of them, I think a lot of people don't realize, they're ordering from the United States. And I don't know, you said you've been doing this 50 years. Are you just small parcel, or were you guys involved? I know there's like these mail drops that will, in Miami, for example, and you ship to Miami, ship to a U.S. address, and they collate them all, and once a week, send them down to Ecuador, send them down to Colombia or to Peru or to wherever. Do y'all do that kind of stuff, or is it more single package delivery type of stuff?
Well, let me give you a little bit of history. We've been doing this for 50 years. We've been delivering to Latin America. When we started, was really delivering bank documents. We were delivering checks back and forth. We were delivering checks from Latin America to the United States to get them into the Federal Reserve. And that's why the need was born for this sort of service, a delivery service. That expanded to mail delivery, where we started to deliver mail again on behalf of the post offices that could not deliver mail efficiently. And then we got into the U.S. address business that you're alluding to. We actually started a company in 1992 called Skybox. Skybox was one of the very first U.S. address services that gave people an address in the United States from which they could shop as if they lived in Miami. So they could go on to and at that time there was no online. This is a catalog, right?
Yeah,
so they would go to the Disney catalog, the J. Crew catalog, the Victoria's Secrets catalog, and they would fax in their orders with our address as their receiving address. And then we would receive and ship down to Latin America. Fast forward a couple more years to 2000, the internet starts to really grow. Online shopping starts to expand in the United States. And people that are a little bit ahead of the curve in Latin America are starting to shop, but they still can't. The Amazons of the world at that time are still not delivering to Latin America, so they still need this U.S. address. Fast forward to 2008, we started to say, hey, you know what? A lot of these big sellers and these big marketplaces are starting to sell to Latin America. We need to start catering to them as well. So we refocused ourselves on the seller, the shipper, the sender, rather than being focused on the buyer, the person in country receiving the packages. So we offer both. The U.S. address service, by nature of the fact that there's so much growth in cross-commerce now, is becoming less and less. There's less of a need for the U.S. address service now that the big boys are starting to send directly to Latin America. So that represents probably less than 10% of our business. The other 90% is us delivering for companies like Amazon, eBay, Shein, Temu, all these big marketplaces in the region. And of course, also partners that we work with that are offering sellers the ability to sell into Latin America through a platform such as Knock Knock, Christie, who are some of the other ones that we work with. Cross Commerce.
And two are coming up in Q1.
They're able to take clients' product database and display it on a one-stop shop where they can handle the transaction on behalf of the buyer, transact it with the seller, and also handle the logistics with a partner like us. So that's kind of what we do.
You're actually running the trucks and the people, or you're partnering with local people in these countries and you're overseeing that, or do you actually are running the whole operation where it's your trucks and your planes? Are you buying excess capacity on cargo ships and cargo planes and stuff? Or
that's correct. We buy space, so we don't own anything in Latin America. We've been down that path. In my early career, we used to own everything in Latin America, and we've kind of divested ourselves of that. We felt that it gives us more flexibility to be able to move around, add providers as we need. For example, in countries like Brazil and Colombia, we might work with 6 different providers delivering the last mile. So our service is about receiving the packages in Miami, transporting into country, managing customs clearance with our partners in every country, and then handing off to our last mile providers, be it 1 or up to 6, depending on the size of the country. The one thing that they are is tied into us through our technology. So they're all fed into us. They print our labels and they feed back all the tracking and online delivery information that a client would need. So for the client, it's a seamless Sky Postal delivery whilst we work with 40 different providers throughout the region.
A lot of Latin America, they don't have an established postal service like the U.S. that's pretty dependable and reliable. I mean, some countries have that, and it's not dependable and it's not reliable. And there's a lot of theft. And then there's some, like I know in Colombia, I've sent stuff, and it's like it gets there, and they find it's almost like an Uber driver. It's like who wants to take this from Barranquilla to Cartagena? And here's the package, here's the value of it, and they're like, no, I ain't taking that because I might get robbed, or this one. So how do you mitigate the risk for shippers that are selling out here? Because it's much more difficult. A lot of times, I know when I ship internationally, I have to put a disclaimer like we ship it, but we don't guarantee delivery because we can't control what's going to happen. Sometimes order at your own risk. So how do you mitigate that?
Well, we do guarantee the delivery. We will. Okay. We could also offer insurance. Yes, there's always the inherent risk of something happening. Things do happen. In my 50 years, I've seen it all down there, and I know that things happen in the region that are out of our control. But we work with the best-in-class providers in country. We provide the security at the airports that are necessary in order to clear customs and get packages delivered to the final mile providers. Usually the theft occurs in that movement from the airport to the final mile providers because the trucks get hijacked. So that's an important thing that we do with our partners. And then in the final mile, listen, sometimes packages get lost. We handle millions of packages every single month. So that's something that we've got to be able to handle. I think it's just as important to be able to give good customer service and responses to our clients when there are problems that occur, because in any logistics business, there are always going to be challenges. But we do strive for a 98% reliability with our service.
Does everywhere in Latin America have addressable addresses, or is there some places where the address is the third door past the tienda with the bananas?
100%. Yeah, that's called a descriptive address. That is definitely a challenge that we face in Latin America. But again, when you are working with experts in those regions, and our final mile providers are always best-in-class players in those countries, they know these areas. They know how to map it out. We do work with many of them that geocode their routes. So whilst they might have the greenhouse behind the SO station, even if that house gets painted, they have geocoded that address, will be able to find it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's it's always been some of the challenges down there is just the delivery system. And then, you got 20 people living in a house and they deliver it and hand it to one person and it never gets to the person it's intended to. And so I never got it. And, Johnny the son took off with it or whatever. So yeah, it's always a challenge. But the opportunity, though, is immense. And a lot of people don't realize, a lot of Amazon sellers, that's mostly who's listening to this in the United States, sell in the U.S. They might have ventured to Canada and they have the option to do the integrated with Mexico. And they might have dabbled like, I don't know. It's just not going that well. And it's not a major focus. But there's emerging markets that are huge, like Colombia and Brazil, especially in Latin America and South America, that are huge opportunities. And I think a lot of people just aren't waking up or realizing up here in North America what those are, and probably don't realize how many of their actually Amazon orders are actually being shipped to Latin America now if they took a deep dive.
Yeah, is a fantastic opportunity. When we have over 1,000 Amazon sellers that are tied into us that sell to Brazil and Mexico. I mean, and they've had great success going into the region. We act as a guide. Our job is to make the transaction as similar to the U.S. transaction as we can. Obviously, we have to deal with customs duties and all that good stuff. But what we try to do is, and what we do with all of our clients is, we are the guide to the region. We're going to help you through it. It might be unknown to you, but our job is to make you feel as comfortable as if you were sending something to New York or California or Chicago.
Some of the countries down there, there's not a lot of tax, but some countries like Brazil, things, it can double the price of an item, and sometimes even more. So is that just something that culture is just used to, that we just accept it, that this iPod case is going to cost twice the price if I was in the United States, or is that a big hurdle that sellers have to overcome? What are some of the hurdles that they got to, from a mindset point of view, of selling?
I think it's important that you focus in on the products that you're selling to the different markets. For the most part, especially into Brazil, where you are paying 100% duties and taxes of the value of the goods. Those are goods that are not easily found or not available in Brazil. So people are willing to pay for them. I was in a meeting yesterday with our partners in Argentina, and I was arguing this exact same thing. Oh my goodness, the taxes are going crazy. They're paying $50. It's going to cost them $50 to get this case. He goes, yeah, but you don't understand. This case is costing us down here $150. So you're still saving money by buying it in the United States and paying the exorbitant taxes. So I think it's important to identify products that are good for that market, there's a need for them and a want for them.
And in some cases, there's a de minimis. So like Colombia has a $200 de minimis. So there's no taxes or duties on those items that are shipped that are less than $200. Whereas if they go to a retail store, that retail store bought more than $200 of that item. And so the retail store paid duties and the customer is going to pay taxes. So that there's 40% right there on clothing that if they're ordering it from the States, they're not getting charged, whereas they're going to get charged for it in a retail store there.
Why do you think Brazil does that 100%? I mean, a lot of times those are protective measures to protect like local artisans and protect local things. And like Indonesia does that now. Again, they ban Temu and they ban a few people because it's going to hurt the local artisans and craft makers and seamstresses and stuff. But why does Brazil do that? Do you have any background on that?
I think it's twofold. First of all, it is protectionism, number one, absolutely. But number two, it's also revenue. tax revenue. The country's always looking for revenues to run the government. And this is an important, I mean, think about this. Into Brazil, just from China, the marketplaces are sending over 1 million items per day into Brazil. So there's a big tax opportunity, big revenue opportunity for the government there, and they're not going to let that go.
Brazil's what, about 200 million, something around
220 million people in Brazil.
And what percentage of, I mean, a lot of people know they've seen the scenes of the favelas and all that and the poor, but what percentage actually, or more, I guess what you would call the middle class or something and up, that could actually afford to pay these kind of prices?
Well, the numbers vary throughout the region. You know, there's about a 35% of the population, but there's a growing middle class in Latin America. And the best part is it's mostly 80% of the population has cell phones. And cell phones are really become the conduit by which a lot of the shopping is being done. And people are finding ways to buy things. That's why we're seeing so much growth in the region. I think that's why it's such a great opportunity for your listeners, that selling to Latin America is very fertile ground. People are American goods crazy. They love to shop online. And now with the methods of payment that are available to them that weren't just 5 years ago, really make it easy for them to do so.
I mean, you got more and more Latin Americans starting to get credit cards now and be comfortable with that. But for the longest time, everything is cash. It's go pay. You stand in line at the grocery store to pay your bill. When you walk out, when you buy $27 worth of groceries, they ask you at the checkout, "Cuántos cuentas?" How many payments do you want? Pay your $27 grocery bill over, and they break it up right there. It's a whole different mentality, but it's the fintechs and the financial system is coming around to make this much more easy.
Exactly right. And they are offering what you're talking about, Kevin. Those they call them parcelas, or payments in installment payments. That's another thing that a lot of the sellers, especially the marketplaces that are focused on the region, Mercado Libre, Linio, they are offering this sort of thing, and even a lot of the Chinese marketplaces are offering payments in quotas or installments.
So what's better? Is it better for me to use your services? I mean, like Mercado Libre, do they have fulfillment, or is it they just a market, just a facilitator?
Mercado Libre is very big on the domestic, intra-regional, more in country. They're not so big on the cross-border side. I would look at some of our partners like Cross Commerce or Knock Knock. Absolutely, I would look at Amazon and their global stores into Brazil and Mexico. We're a big partner of theirs, handling all of their sellers into those countries. But yeah, try to go to a place where you can really just get the support you need, that is able to localize, your store, language wise, currency wise, and be able to manage customer inquiries.
So you can coordinate. So if I'm understanding you correctly, Sky Postal can coordinate not only individual shipments, if I'm shelling off my Shopify store or FBM and one by ones going into Latin America, but you can also, if I need to ship in 3 pallets to Mexico or to Brazil or to Mercado Libre in Chile or something, you can help facilitate that as almost like a 3PL as well. Is that correct?
We can.
At competitive rates.
At competitive rates.
And what is the time right now that's taken typically for a standard package? I'm not talking about like overnight or something, but a standard package to get from the U.S. into one of the bigger markets, in, let's say Brazil, and to get to Rio de Janeiro or something in Brazil. How long has it taken from that process?
So overall, the average is going to be 4 to 8 days from arrival in Miami, depending on, obviously, as you mentioned, if we have to deliver it, up the Amazon River using a canoe and a donkey to deliver it, it might take a little longer. But for the most part, we're in the 4 to 8 day range for delivery throughout the region.
So the way it works is if I'm selling on Amazon in the U.S. and I do an FBM order, I'm going to ship that to your drop spot, your warehouse in Miami. Do you ship those, turn around and like 24 hours later it's going out in a batch, or does it like batch up every 3 days as soon as you fill up a container or something they go, or how does that process work?
No. The major markets like Brazil are going to go daily. The way it will work, we'll give you through your bill. You'll be able to integrate directly with us. We'll give you the ability to print final mile label at origin. And if you've not got the volume to create a consolidation of shipments, and by that I mean 10 or 12 shipments at a time with the final mile label on them, and you send it to Miami, we can also give you the ability to print a USPS label if you're only selling 1 or 2 items at a time. our system gives you the ability to print a U.S. label, USPS label, gets it to us in Miami. Upon receipt in Miami, we'll scan that item, we'll print the final mile label, and then it will go into our regular streams, our daily streams going into each of the countries.
So I'm paying the UPS or USPS rates to get it from, say, I'm in Texas, I'm in Austin. So if my warehouse is in Austin, I'm shipping it to Miami. So if it's a 1 pound package, it's costing me around $8 or so, $7-8 to get that to you. And then you get it, and then you're putting another label over the top of it and sending it on. Or if I have 26 orders that day, can I put those all in one big box and send a 26 pound box to you, and then you break that up?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So you can put in all of your orders in one box.
Okay.
Yeah.
It don't have to be the same items. It can be a mishmash or whatever. Just as long as each one's individually packaged and labeled, then you'll sort it from there and distribute it out. So that's how I can get economies of scale and save on that. It's like my own little smart post or something.
Right.
All right. And then, so what's like that 1 pound package going to cost me from Miami to Rio, roughly?
The 1 pound package is going to be half a kilo or 500 grams. It's going to probably cost, $8 to $10 to get it delivered.
All in with box and fulfillment and everything, I'm about $20 to send this item, a 1 pound, a half a kilo or 1 pound item, roughly. But the consumer on the other side is more than happy to pay that.
Oh, sure. And I'm sure we can help you. We can help you on your first mile in the U.S. to better that $8 you paid.
Yeah,
we also have excellent domestic services that we can offer our clients. So because of our volumes, we've got excellent domestic rates that we're able to pass along to our partners.
Do some of your bigger partners just have warehouses in Miami where they're just pulling it out of the local warehouse and just driving it over to you?
Some of the big guys do, but some of them have distribution centers throughout the United States, and they'll just create consolidations. They've shipped to us from Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, mostly truck down to us via road, and they'll send the consolidations, whether it be 2-3 times a week. These trucks will come in.
What are besides Brazil and Mexico, what are the next 2 or 3 markets people might want to consider?
Great question. We always look at it in tiers. Obviously, your major tier is Brazil and Mexico. The second tier markets are Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, are by far, and Costa Rica, I would say, are the next tier. Then after that, I would start looking at the Uruguay, the rest of Central America. And obviously, let's not forget about the islands. The islands also have some big growth. Jamaica, the Dominican Republic are very big buyers. And there's opportunity everywhere. I mean, there really is opportunity
everywhere. In the Caribbean, too. Not just Latin America, but the Caribbean as well.
Sure. We can handle the Caribbean as well.
How am I finding out, like you said earlier, like especially if on the products, if you can figure out what they want in those markets and they're willing to pay that extra fees for and the wait for and pay the shipping and the higher tariffs in some cases, how am I finding that out? Like in the United States, I'll use a tool like Helium-10 and I'll see what's selling on Amazon, what people are wanting. What are some tools or some methods? But if I want to find out what's working in Peru or Colombia, what's the best way to do that? Is it to go to Mercado Libre and just use some tool there, or is there something that some of your clients use to kind of get that market insight, that market research?
You could do some of your own research, but you can also speak to us. As I mentioned, we're a guide. We're delivering millions of pieces. We know everything that's being sent. So we can tell you what are the hot products that are going into, or what are the categories that you should be looking at, and what are the categories you should stay away from. To Mexico right now, supplements is not a good idea. But to Brazil, supplements is a very big business. So we can tell you, and you can come to me and say, hey, I have a store that does perfumes. I go, well, perfumes to this country are no good, but perfumes to Brazil, fantastic. To Colombia, fantastic. Supplements, cosmetics. These are all things that are very popular, but you have to know where they can go and where they can't. Obviously, clothing is always going to be big, especially U.S. Brands. Electronics, phone accessories is another very big thing. But I think that we can help and we can guide you. And if you have a specific target or you have a product that you want to understand how it's going to work in each country, we can certainly help you with our local contacts.
Do you help with any kind of liquidation? When the Super Bowl happens and the Chiefs win over the Cowboys or something, and they have all these Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl champion shirts that they have to destroy, or what they usually don't do is destroy them. They send them down to Latin America or Africa. Do you do any of that kind of stuff as well?
That's funny. Yeah, I've heard, we've not handled anything like that. I have seen that, and as a matter of fact, I have seen shirts like that in Latin America. So you're not lying. We haven't been approached to handle those type of products. I mean, but we certainly could.
So what's something that's coming up that you said, you told us a few examples like in the beauty category and supplements that you should or shouldn't do, but what's something that you're seeing kind of emerging right now that's maybe a hot trend that someone listening to this might want to consider? And it doesn't matter which country it is. And where do you see as a big opportunity right now out there in Latin America?
Well, health and beauty is a very big category. Very, very big. As I mentioned, clothing is very big. Home goods is an interesting thing. You know, alarm systems, surveillance systems, or cameras. You know, for your home. You know, Ring cameras and all that stuff. We send a lot of that down there. Yeah. So there's so many opportunities. But I would definitely say that electronics and accessories to those electronics is a very, very big popular thing into Latin America.
Now, just to put this in perspective on the size, Christy, you were saying earlier about the market size. I think Amazon's about 700. When you count in the 1P and the 3P, it's about $700 billion in the U.S. You know, Amazon's Prime Day is the equivalent to the entire year of TikTok Shop in the U.S. I mean, TikTok Shop last year did $20 million, and Prime Day did like 15.3 million this year. So, I mean, put that in perspective. Amazon does in a couple of days what TikTok Shop does in a year, but still everybody's like super up on TikTok Shop. It's a shiny object right now. But to put in perspective of where Latin America is growing, you gave me a number earlier that's pretty significant into the couple hundred million billions.
$195 billion this year, and by 2028, so just less than 4 years from now, it'll be 270 billion, and only 5% of U.S. Amazon sellers are even selling on Amazon Mexico. So the market penetration is so low. It's the time for sellers to get in early, you know, build their brand reputation up so their items show first easier.
Usually, a lot of times when on these accelerated markets, a lot of times the U.S. sellers, like, they're just content staying in the U.S. They're like, I know the laws, I know this is my people, I know the language. I got to figure something out for the same amount of effort I can put in to sell on Amazon US. I put in that same effort for Amazon Mexico. The return is just not the same. And so why should I put in that same effort? What do you say to those people that like, well, the Chinese guys, you know, they got whole offices of people that are, they're coming in and doing it. You should come in. And then people say about localization, like in the US, we have a competitive advantage. If I'm a white guy in Austin, I know my culture versus the Chinese have a hard time, you know, understanding the Western culture. But Latin American culture is more similar. I mean, there's differences, but it's more similar to United States culture than, say, Chinese culture. And there's enough people in the U.S. that have immigrated here from Latin America where it shouldn't be too hard to find people that understand that culture and the little idiosyncrasies about how to market to them and what they like. So what would you say to people that are just resistant? Like, that's not worth the effort. I can put the same effort here, or I don't understand the culture, you know. What would you say? How would you coach people to overcome that and give this a try?
I'll give you one good one, Kevin. It's ad buys. It's much cheaper to buy advertising in Latin America than the United States. You get a lot more bang for your buck with your marketing dollars, and it's easier to acquire clients. Again, yes. Is it more challenging? Yes. But our job is to try to make it as easy as possible and make it as much of a U.S. transaction in the eyes of the seller as possible. And let us do the hard work, customs clearance, and the final mile delivery. You just sell. From your point of view, it's just you selling to another state. And that's how we try to do it.
The other way to do it is through the platforms that are acting as sellers for them, similar to like a Pattern in the U.S., Knock Knock, Cross Commerce, and then there's two more that are coming in Q1 of 2025. Whereas they act as a seller for you, so you give them your items, price, inventory items, and then they do all the work. They do all the ad buys. They price it the way it needs to be priced. And they've got skin in the game to, get the sales because they're putting all the work into it. So that's another solution. And for me, I would say, go on all of them because it's like you're selling on eBay, Walmart, Wish, Amazon in the US. I would say go to all of them. It's like being in the aisle, 5 times in Walmart versus 1 time.
Yeah, Knock Knock has been on the podcast, and that's an interesting model where they basically, for those that haven't listened or haven't heard that, you can go back. It's about a year and a half ago. But Knock Knock, the way they work is they basically they have their own storefronts, like what Christy said, a pattern. They have their own storefront, and they put your stuff into their storefront. They do the marketing, and they negotiate a price with you. And I didn't realize that they're using you guys, Sky Postal, to actually facilitate a lot of that delivery. They made it sound like it's almost their own little warehouse, but that makes sense. That
Oops, the secret's out.
they're white labeling you guys.
That's okay. They don't have to know who we are. We just deliver for them.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So that could be a way to test it if someone's a little hesitant or something to test it.
Absolutely.
And we can help facilitate the introductions onto all of these platforms. So, making the introductions, helping sort of making sure that the right items are getting placed and that you're getting the attention that you need.
Now, is there a certain type of seller that typically does better here? Like someone that's more experienced in the U.S. marketplace, maybe they're doing over $1 million a year, and that's the time to let me expand over and put some resources to Latin America? Or is it someone that's doing $50,000 a year in the U.S. where it's super competitive, go, you know what, I'm tired of wasting money on ad spend, and I just can't make any money here. But my product, maybe I can make 50 grand in all of Latin America because it's not as competitive, and I can actually make a profit. What's the mentality you would tell somebody that they should, when should they take a look at Latin America?
We have seen very small sellers who have now, after having joined us, sell more in Latin America than they sell into the United States domestically. So to put a dollar amount, it's hard for us because we do have guys that are big, that do over $1 million. And then you have these small ones that really started, they cut their teeth with us, and they are actually doing more business to Brazil and Mexico than they're doing into the United States. And maybe it's because they found some sort of niche. And like you said, it's easier to market these products. It's cheaper to market these products. They don't have the competition they deal with in the United States and selling them. And maybe that's the way to go. I mean, you're definitely going to see less competition in a market where there's only 5% penetration from U.S. sellers.
Now, what about coming the other way? What do you do anything coming? We've been talking about shipping from the U.S. into Latin America. What about from Latin America back into the U.S.? You said you used to do it with checks and stuff, but there's opportunity in the U.S. where you can go online. You can see there's Colombian candies, yep, or dulce de leche from Argentina, or different honeys or whatever. That there's opportunity to sell these types of products in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But people are like, I don't know how to source this. I don't know who distributes this. I don't know where to get it. Do you do anything on the reverse logistics on that of coming back into the United States?
Yes, we do. So the good news is we have offices in every country. So these partners of ours are able to handle this, and it's a reverse. So they're the ones receiving it in their hubs. They're transporting it to us. We're clearing customs in Miami, and then we're utilizing our partners here in the United States, which is UPS and USPS, to do the final mile.
So if I've got a factory in Colombia that's making there's a big factory that does a lot of the foams for Crocs and stuff. They have offices in Mexico, okay, and in Colombia. So if I'm trying to just diversify my sourcing outside of China, and I'm looking at Latin America, you guys could actually perhaps help me find a manufacturer because you have offices there, mm-hmm, and also then coordinate the logistics of getting back into the U.S. market.
Yes, we can. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of companies that are doing fulfillment out of Mexico for the U.S. So we handle it from Mexico. Our partner gets it in Mexico. We truck it across the border and then distribute it throughout the United States.
So you're doing the thing where someone, instead of shipping a container load into the U.S. and having to pay the Trump tariffs and duties, they ship it in Guadalajara or somewhere and then put it over small packet via under the de minimis, totally legal. Everything's totally legal and above board, but under the de minimis rules, and just store it cheaply in a 3PL across the Mexican border from El Paso or from San Diego or wherever. And
that's exactly right. We go through Laredo.
Piece it over piece by piece, and you end up saving 30-40% in some cases on duties.
That is correct.
So you guys can help with that as well.
Yep, because we bring it in as an individual order, not as a consolidation or a formal implementation.
Yeah, that's a big. What do you think is going to happen with all this de minimis stuff? I mean, just in the United States alone, Temu and TikTok Shop and Shein are it's billions of packages coming in right now. And
I think that these challenges,
$800 is going to go back. Yeah, they raised it in 2016, I think it was, from 200 to 800. And what do you think is going to happen?
I think that all eyes are on China. I think that especially the U.S. and Europe are taking very close looks at China, and that's why China has focused so much on Latin America. That's why we're seeing so much growth. And I think all of e-commerce is looking towards Latin America because right now it's 4, 5, 10 years behind where the U.S. and European markets are today. But there is going to be a certain level of protectionism that's going to happen, in my opinion. It's happening already in Europe. It's going to happen here in the United States. The 800 de minimis, I think, is going to come down.
I think the 800 might stay if you're actually traveling on an airplane. You go to Paris.
Oh, no, that's different. That's different.
I think it might stay for that, but I think for shipments through the post or through the mail, I think it's going to go back down to 200, maybe even lower. I mean, some countries it's like $20.
Yeah, we fight that all the time because I'm a very pro de minimis kind of guy because of my business. But I understand the need for it. But there comes a point in time where you say, is it really worth the amount of work it takes to collect taxes on a $20 item? I think a $20 de minimis is ridiculous. I think it should be no less than $100 to make sense for to reduce the work on that country's customs authorities while still collecting duties on higher priced items.
I got stung in the Chicago with taxes about 2 years ago. I went to a mastermind in Paris. Buddy of mine was throwing this high end mastermind, and I was with my wife at the time. We did a little bit of shopping in Paris at some of the designer stores, and flew back through Chicago, and got pulled over for not declaring everything.
Are you kidding? Wow.
It was. Turns out that the way it worked is I researched it afterwards, but we were on a flight from Paris to Chicago, land in Chicago. There's no line in customs, no line in immigration, and they're passing out those blue pieces of paper that they had basically gone away from. Now everything's
Still,
online.
My goodness,
they're passing them out, but I didn't have time to fill it out because there's no line. And they said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And they asked me like, "What are you bringing? Any cigars or cigarettes?" Normal questions. I was like, "No." Or alcohol. I was like, "No." You buy anything? So I bought some shoes. Like, how much? And I said, "Oh, there's two of us, so I could do $1,600." I said, "That's like $1,200." She wrote a code on the top of the blue sheet. All right, go to immigration. So I go to immigration, and they're like, "Oh, the code meant flag." I was flagged somehow. So they sent me over, and my then wife was like, "Just be honest with them." We had like $35,000 of clothing and stuff.
Oh my God!
And purses and a watch and things, and so we went over to the next line, and he's like, "What do you got?" I was like, "That's about $5,000 worth." And he's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." And my wife's like, almost like kicking me a little bit, like, "Just be honest." And I was like, "It's like 5,000." He's like, "All right, put your bags up on the table." I put my briefcase up on the table. He never went through any of the bags. He opened one zipper on my briefcase, and right on top were all the VAT refunds I'd done in Paris. All the receipts for the VAT refunds that showed how much money we'd spent. I got like $4,000 or $5,000 back or something in VAT refunds, some crazy amount. And it was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "That's our VAT refunds." It turns out
it's your fault.
It's my fault, and I ended up having to pay $7,000.
Oh my God!
Everything. Then I got put on a list for a year. They wouldn't tell me how long. If I had global entry, they took it away. I didn't have global entry, but they were taken away. I didn't lose TSA pre, but they told me, "You're going to be plan extra all your international trips in the foreseeable future. Plan extra time because you're going to be checked on every single flight." So it worked out to be it's five trips. I figured out after 5 trips, I travel quite a bit. So within a year, I'd done 5 international trips. I'm off. So now I'm off of it. But I was dead on honest. If I had a piece of bubble gum that I bought in the airport, I declared it. But yeah, so. But it turned out there was a competition going on between New York, Chicago, and Dallas at that time to see what they could confiscate. They were looking for flights out of Milan and Paris because those are 2 common ones that people don't declare. And they were also, it turns out when you do those VAT refunds at those machines and like in certain parts of Europe, that information is shared with the U.S. government in advance. So they know coming off the plane who has stuff and who doesn't. So they have the ability to pull that. It's a new system that they're testing out, and we just got caught up in it. So I'm very familiar with all that de minimis stuff.
You got hit hard.
So the opportunity is huge right now. A lot of people don't know about you guys. So were you just kind of like under the radar for a while and just kind of playing behind the scenes, and now you're having your big coming out party, or what's happening?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we were well known in the wholesale community. So wholesalers are what are considered consolidators in the United States, big companies that you've never heard of that receive packages, an Ascendia, Landmark, Pitney Bowes, APC. These are all clients that work with that would work with these sellers, and then they would use us as their Latin American arm. So we didn't appear to the sellers or the shippers, and that's changed now because people are looking to eliminate middlemen. and so they come directly to us, and that's how we've become more well known, I should say.
So how's the process work? If I want to expand in Latin America, and I'm considering doing it, maybe I've got some products already, or I got some ideas for something I might want to do. What do I do? Do I pick up the phone and call you? Do I go to your website and fill out a form? And is there a monthly fee? Is it just a by shipment fee, or how's the whole? Explain the whole Sky Postal system to me as a client.
So you can contact us either via email. You can call us via our website. Any way that you can get a hold of us, we'll get you rates. We do not have a monthly fee. You pay by the shipment. You ship, you pay. And we get you integrated with us. You'll have access to the system. You'll have access to be able to print our labels, whether it be first mile or final mile, and we'll get you set up. We'll train you on the system. We'll train you how the process works. We'll give you an SOP, and we'll get things rolling for you.
So is this a separate system, or does this integrate with like ShipStation and stuff like that?
We are integrated with companies like ShipStation and Easy Ship if you're using those label platforms. So you can integrate to us through those, or you can directly integrate with us if you prefer.
And Shopify. If you have a Shopify account, we can use that as well.
And of course, Amazon.
Amazon, you said Amazon is using you for some of their Prime stuff. So
Yes.
Sometimes, so like if I want to ship into Brazil, a lot of times someone from Brazil will go on Amazon.com, not .br or whatever, and they will actually order. And then as long as I've got, I think there's a setting that I have to turn on that allows like international shipments or maybe it's by default, you can turn it off. But there's a setting in Seller Central for sellers that you can, I think you can even do it country by country, because sometimes there's rights issues. You know, if you're selling Disney products, you can't ship a Disney product to a certain market or something like that. So as long as those settings are correct, a lot of times Amazon will just ship it FBA without you ever knowing it, that it actually went into somewhere else. So where you come in, it's not necessarily in that, because you already have a relationship with Amazon for that. It's more the FBM or the Shopify or my individual website, or if I'm working with companies like Knock Knock or something, sending in stuff to them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's no minimums or volume or anything?
We do have minimums. It's a monthly minimum, but it's not a material number. I think it's just a way for us to be able to make sure that we're able to give clients the attention they deserve. It's hard for us to work with a client that generates one package a month. It's just not feasible for us from an economic standpoint, and we can't give them the attention that they need at those levels. But our minimums are, I believe, on a monthly basis, I think $250 a month, which is 25 shipments, 30 shipments, so we don't want to say no to anybody, but we've unfortunately found ourselves in a position to say, hey, look, we have to have a certain minimum in order to be able to give the quality of service that we want. So
if you had to sum it up, why should someone consider Latin America and consider using you? We've talked about it, but if you could have to sum it up and create a little soundbite for me here of why someone should be looking at Latin America and consider using Sky Postal for all their logistics needs.
Well, Latin America is the fastest growing online shopping region in the world. There's no argument about that. You should look at any resource that will tell you that. And Sky Postal has been in the market for 40 years, and we're considered experts into the region. So if you're going to go into a region that you're not familiar with, I would expect that you would want to work with someone who knows what they're doing, that's been there before, and can act as a guide. Not a worldwide provider that happens to offer Brazil as one of its 120 countries. We are experts in Latin America, and that's what we do.
And one other question that just came to mind, what about are there any kind of packaging requirements? Like when I go into Europe, I have to have stuff in French and German and whatever.
No.
Are there rules going in Latin America that you need to have stuff in Portuguese or Spanish or anything?
Any language requirements like that might be required on the manifest, which is what we send in. So we're able to put it into the language of the country. So the sellers do not have to do anything with their labels or their packaging.
And what about there's certain rules? Do you help with compliance?
Oh God, yes.
Certain Mountain Dew is banned and certain Cheetos are banned in certain European countries because of some of the ingredients that they use. Mm-hmm. So do you help with making sure that your client stuff is actually compliant into the countries it's going to? You can't send Cheetos into somewhere because of dye number 7 or something that's some orange weirdness.
Absolutely. We will give our clients a list of restricted items and categories by country that they'll be able to see what they can and cannot ship.
Well, this sounds good. I really appreciate you guys coming on, AJ and Christie, and sharing some really good insights. I think people need to wake up to the opportunity in Latin America it's in your back door here as for those of you that are living in the United States, and it's a culture that you already somewhat understand because there's a heavy dose of Latin American culture in the U.S. already, and it just makes sense. And same time zones, very similar culture, and a very big desire for your goods. So I think Sky Postal and some of what we talked about today should be on your roadmap to explore. If people want to reach out, what's the website or email or phone number, or what's the best way to get a hold of you guys and learn more?
Our website is skypostal.com. You can click on there and you can immediately get in touch with us. You can also email Christie or myself. I am AJ Hernandez at skypostal.com, and she is CRUGH at skypostal.com. Christie Rugh at skypostal.com.
It's been really good speaking with you, Christie, today. We had lots. No, I'm just kidding. It's really good speaking to both of you. Christie, she piped in the good stuff. She piped in, but that's awesome. Thanks for coming on the AMPM podcast. It's been fun, and I think this has probably been enlightening for quite a few people, and that probably opened their eyes to some opportunities they didn't know existed.
Kevin, we appreciate the opportunity to get on your show and talk to all these people. I think there's a great opportunity, and we hope we can help them.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at Amazon Innovate.
That's right. I'll be there.
Innovate. That's right.
You're sponsoring Innovate. I'm sponsoring Innovate. This is coming out right before Innovate, so it's perfect timing. So those of you listening to this at the end of October when this comes out, hopefully we'll see you. Myself, I have a booth at AMZ Innovate in New York, and so does Sky Postal. So go up and tell them, hey, I heard you on the pod, and see what you can do and get all your questions answered. Awesome.
That's wonderful. Look forward to it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks. There's a lot of shining objects out there like TikTok Shop and Shein and Temu that we're all talking about, but one of the most obvious that's just laying in your hands is Latin America. So if you haven't considered expanding to Latin America and you're selling in the U.S., and especially if you live in the U.S., Latin America should be on your radar, and it should be something you take a look at. So hopefully this has opened your eyes to a little bit. Reach out to Sky Postal if you got some more information. They can definitely help you and hold your hand a little bit as well, like AJ said. Or if you're listening to this in time and you're going to be in New York for the Innovate conference, come see me, come see the guys at Sky Postal, and give them a chat and see what you can do. We'll be back again next week with another awesome episode of the AMPM podcast. Thanks for joining me this week. Before we leave, I've got some parting shot for you. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. Have a good one. See you again next week.